Welcome to this week's Mindful Minute. My name is Allison Knight, and I am the health coach for Employee Health Center. We have been going through the Mindful Way workbook for 26 weeks now, and we have been talking about using the Mindful Way and mindfulness practice to help manage and free ourselves from emotional distress, depression, anxiety, burnout, stress, those types of things. We have talked about the doing and being mindset, working in autopilot versus being present. We have talked about recognizing aversion. That's usually our first response to feelings that are negative or unwanted. We have talked about seeing thoughts as thoughts, trying to create this new healthy relationship with our thoughts and identifying that a thought is a thought and that is not necessarily the truth. We've also talked about allowing things to be, allowing those unpleasant feelings to exist, but then acknowledging them, identifying them, seeing how they are perpetuated in our bodies, our sensations, our tightness, our bracing, and looking for the underlying root cause of that. What feelings and emotions are causing those feelings in our body, and then allowing them to pass by, allowing yourself to let go of those feelings. We also then talked about kindness in action. We talked about identifying your personal triggers, your personal signs and warning that you are starting to spiral downward or out of control into depression or burnout. We talked about creating this list of activities, both an actionable one, a pleasure one, something that gives you joy, and a mastery list, a list of things that gives you a sense of accomplishment. So maybe it's not necessarily joyful while you're doing it, but it gives you a sense of accomplishment after. And these are the things that we want you to turn to when you feel like you are losing control, when you sense that you're starting to spiral out of control. Last week then we started talking about, well, what do we do to sustain this practice? I've given you a lot of examples of various techniques and practices such as the body scan, mindful movement, sitting meditations, and of course the 3-minute breathing space, which again in mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, that is the first line of defense when you are feeling overwhelmed and feel like you're losing control, is to do that 3-minute breathing space to help yourself gather and expand your awareness, and then hopefully move forward mindfully in the next moments of your day. We talked about creating your own sustainable practice where this is personal, this is you deciding what practices work best for you, hopefully incorporating that 3-minute breathing space as your first line of defense, and also setting up maybe smaller to begin with so that you are incorporating it into your daily life and then building upon that. So those baby steps. And now we're jumping into creating an actual concrete action plan. So you've already identified your own personal triggers, your unhelpful thoughts, your signs that you might be losing control, and hopefully sharing this with a loved one or a friend so that they can also help you identify these triggers or these signs. And then we want to actually create a plan. And to do this, beyond that, I want to ask you a couple questions to think about. First question, in the past, what has helped you when you are starting to feel bad? What are things that bring you joy? What are things that give you a sense of accomplishment? What are things that help you feel better? What might be a skillful response to mental pain or low mood that you're feeling? And how could you respond best to the turmoil of thoughts and feelings without adding to it? Again, maybe there's a particular practice that you feel like benefits you, maybe body scans, feeling that tightness bracing in your body, and then identifying those underlying emotions and thoughts that might be fueling that. How can you best take care of yourself at this difficult time? And what activities might nourish you? Who are people you might be able to contact? What are small things that could add distraction for you? What can you do to take care of yourself right at this moment? And now, most importantly, in the past, what obstacles have stopped you from taking steps that might help when things are getting out of hand, when you start to lose control? Listing your barriers and your obstacles is extremely important in any goal, but especially in this, because you need to have a plan on how you're going to get over that obstacle or that barrier. So when you're creating this action plan, the first thing you want to do is you want to list your top 5 signs, triggers, unhelpful thoughts that can let you know that things are starting to get out of hand. And then you want to create a 3-step process. The first step being is start with a breathing space. Again, this is our first line of defense. This is where we turn first when things start to get out of hand. And second of all, you choose 1 or 2 practices then that you feel like help you gather yourself, your thoughts, your feelings best, and list those. So body meditation, sitting meditation, mindful movement, stretching meditation, etc. Next, take action by doing a mastery or a pleasure activity. So list, again, maybe 1, 2, 3 different things. Remember, variety can be helpful to keep things from getting stale, but having some core things that always seem to work is also good. And lastly, listing those obstacles that you thought about and the things that you need to do to overcome those obstacles and those barriers. And you might find it helpful to sign it and date it and update it as needed. What you need at this time is no different than what you have already practiced many times through this mindfulness-based cognitive therapy course. And hopefully you are implementing these practices into your daily life already, so it's easy to use, especially when, and most importantly, when you need it, when things start to get out of control. The most important thing is to reconnect with some sense of control over your life, over your emotions, no matter how small that it might seem. And remembering that one small change can have a large impact in the end. So baby steps are key. And also when we talk about depression, again, reminding ourselves that motivation actually works backwards, and we have to force ourselves to do something before we're actually going to want to do that thing. And so instead of allowing ourselves to get stuck in that rut, forcing ourselves to start making a small change, a small step forward, and then hopefully the domino effect will occur. In the next couple of weeks, I will read a short excerpt called The Summer Day, and we have 2 more weeks of talking about, well, what now? What are some tips, techniques? What are some ideas for sustaining practice and incorporating mindfulness into my everyday life and incorporating my action plan when I need it? Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful and mindful week.